Welcome back to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany, where I explore cutting-edge methods to enhance our health and well-being. I am your host, Brittany Ford, and I'm so excited that you are listening today. This episode was really interesting. I learned a lot. I think I say that about every episode, but I learned a ton about breastfeeding and the woman's body and what is best for baby in this episode. We talk about so many challenges that women can go through, during birth and labor. We talk about hypnobirthing. We talk about breastfeeding and the struggles that so many women have in this space. Things like inverted nipples, mastitis, clogged ducts, and how we can kind of get through that and work through those health issues in a holistic and natural way and not necessarily a more intense way. I was joined by Emily Stone, and she is just an expert in this fertility, hypnobirthing, breastfeeding space. And it was awesome to connect with her and kind of go through a lot of these issues that women honestly struggle with all the time. We also unpack intuition and connecting with our body and how do we make decisions that in our gut feel good? How do we trust that? Right? And that's really, really difficult, especially when there's so much fear mongering that comes from the medical system. There's so much you have to advocate for yourself and for your baby all of the time, right? I have been through so much of this recently, and it's really hard because you know what's best for you and your baby or you and your body, even if you don't have a kid. And sometimes the healthcare practitioner or person that you're dealing with thinks otherwise. They think a very allopathic way, right? Very mainstream. They don't necessarily see what you see and understand what you understand. So we talk about that of tapping into that, your body, your intuition, and how you can kind of benefit from that and how you can trust that as much as you possibly can. Before we dive into this episode, let's do DM of the day. This is just when I talk about or mention a DM that I got a message, and I just really appreciate all of the messages and love you guys have given me. It's been really fantastic. So thank you for that. Okay. This person writes, "Hi, Brittany. Your advocacy for non-toxic living and your tips on creating healthier home environments have really resonated with me. I'm constantly looking for ways to reduce my exposure to environmental toxins and create a safer space for myself and my family." Oh, I love that. Your recent posts on Instagram about non-toxic nurseries were incredibly informative. I'm curious if you have any additional recommendations or products or practices that promotes a non-toxic lifestyle, especially when it comes to everyday items like cleaning products, personal care products, and cookware. Thank you for being such a valuable resource and talking about these things. Okay, great. Thank you for writing in. Absolutely. So cleaning products, personal care products is a lot. Depending where you live, that's what makes this question a little tricky. So the US has really, really great access to some of the best brands. Canada, we kind of do, but not really, not as much. So there are some fantastic brands that you can get. When I buy cleaning products, I will tell you what I buy. I usually buy the brand Attitude, which you can get on Amazon. They are they Canadian based? I want to believe that they are Canada based. They are really great. And I just love, 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 love what they're doing. Are they EWG certified? They might be, but they have really clean products. Everything that they do, everything that they have, I trust. So take a look at them. I also use a company called Mint, which is definitely from Canada. That's from Vancouver Island. I have been to their warehouse actually. And this is all clean products, all natural. They use essential oils, very, very best of the best, a little pricier for sure. But I also love supporting a Canadian company. So I love Mint. So those are kind of my go-tos for cleaning products is Mint and Attitude. Personal care products, man, there's so much to say here. Depends what you're talking about. I usually check EWG, which is the Environmental Working Group website. They have a skincare, personal care product page where you can type in the product and look at what it's rated. This is really helpful. I have done this for most of the makeup that I have, for the skincare that I use, for nipple butter, for everything. That's kind of where I go through. And I will link that in the show notes for you so that you can find that easily and kind of look at all your products. I think makeup is kind of hard. So makeup is not included in this. But in other things, there are really natural ways that you can go about doing things, right? So like for example, nipple butter, like you can use coconut oil. You don't have to buy a nipple butter. Same with diaper cream, diaper rash cream. You can use coconut oil. You don't have to buy something that is got a bunch of ingredients in it that apparently helps. So things like that, like I would really think about how you can kind of go at it at a very natural, very few ingredients, if not just one ingredient way. I have, for my skin right now, I use a company called Muskoka Tallow. My friend started that company, Shelby, and it is fantastic. And it's literally tallow from grass-fed and grass-finished cows. So tallow is like the fat, really nutrient dense. And some of them have a few essential oils in them. But other than that, it is just the tallow. So I've kind of gotten a little bit more simplistic in my self-care products. Makeup is tricky. I would not say, I don't even know what my favorite one is. Beauty Counter is really great. Everything I've ever tried from Beauty Counter, except for their mascara, has been really good. So their mascara, unfortunately, smudges with my eyes. I've tried it a few times, but everything else I love. They have a really great blush, eyeshadow, concealer. What else have I tried? CC cream. Like they have a bunch and it's really clean. They're certified on EWG. And so they are one of the best brands out there. And also it actually is really nice makeup. Like it looks good. Like you can actually see how it looks and it looks very clean and it's pigmented. Sometimes when you buy all natural makeup, it's not that great. So those are kind of some brands. That's a good place for you to start that I would recommend. Definitely check that out. And a shout out to Qualia. Qualia creates a product called they have a product called Qualia Senolytic that works on senescent cells. Now, I know those are a bunch of big words. So senescent cells are basically these old cells that we have that are taking up room in our body that we want to get rid of, and we want to bring in the new cells that function better and are healthier. Senescent cells, the accumulation of them is something that is, these cells are one of the 12 hallmarks of aging. So this can really impact how quickly we are aging on a cellular level. And so we really want to get rid of these and bring in the new cells and make space for it. So using a supplement like Qualia Senolytic can kind of expedite this process, speed it up. You only have to take the supplement 2 days out of the month, which is awesome. And that's why I love taking it, just to support my cellular health. Has things like quercetin and fisetin in it. I think it's actually their most popular product now, from what I was reading. Yeah, it's really big. So use my discount code BiohackingBrittany, gets you an extra discount at checkout. I think it's an extra 15% off on top of any sales or anything else like that. And then a shout out to Bioptimizers. I absolutely love their mushroom breakthrough powder. I make like mushroom milk with this, is what I joke around with. Essentially, it's like my afternoon pick-me-up. I have 2 scoops in milk and it really just lights my brain on fire. So instead of relying on caffeine or sugar or anything like that, it has things like reishi in it and different mushrooms like cordyceps to really help support brain functioning. So it's like my afternoon go-to. You can use my discount code BiohackingBrittany in all capitals, and this will help you, actually gets you a discount off of their entire store. So I love all of their products. So enjoy that and enjoy this podcast episode. I think you're going to learn a lot, and I will catch you soon for another one. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. Thanks for tuning in today. I am really excited about this episode because I feel like I have so much that I want to learn and talk to about with Emily Stone, who is the founder of Empowered Bumps and Boobs. Emily's journey into motherhood and her passion for holistic reproductive and postpartum health have led her to create a supportive community that empowers new moms to embrace a holistic approach to breastfeeding, which is really, really cool and very aligned with my own values. She is an expert in fertility awareness, hypnobirthing, and overcoming common breastfeeding challenges. And she's here to share her wisdom and experiences with us. She also has an upcoming book, which is called Calm Your Tits, 20 Strategies to Soothe Your Nervous System for a Better Birth, Breastfeeding, and New Baby Experience. Love the title. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brittany. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So, before we dive into all the juicy questions that I have for you, can you share with us your personal journey that kind of led you to become such an advocate for holistic reproductive health?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've been an educator all my life. So I started out teaching middle school math straight out of college. I quickly transitioned to more adult learning. So I've helped many companies and many people create online courses, e-learning, corporate training, things like that. And then it occurred to me, why don't I create courses for the stuff that I'm passionate about, which is helping women, make babies, birth babies, feed babies, everything in between. So I have 3 little boys, 6, almost 10 and 12. And when I was preparing for my first birth, I started to learn about hypnobirthing, and I was like really into this natural birthing thing. It resonated with me. It just seemed like that was how I was meant to do it. But I felt so unsupported. Like I would tell people that I wanted to try to have an unmedicated birth. And I was met with like, okay, cool. But like, wait till the first contraction hits, and like no support. And I thought, people have been birthing since the beginning of time, like before epidurals were invented. Like I'm sure there's a way. So it just sort of felt like a DIY project to figure out how to have like the birth I wanted. And then when it came to breastfeeding, I had a flat nipple, and then I got mastitis, and, I had to use a nipple shield. And again, it was just like a DIY project. Like surely other people have figured this out. And so it sort of became a passion. I did end up breastfeeding my first baby for, I think, 20 months, my second for like 26 months, and my third for like 22 months. So I went on to have some like really awesome breastfeeding journeys with all my boys, not without hiccups, not without bumps, and lots of problem solving. But the more moms I talked to, the more I heard like, I didn't get the help I needed. I had to stop before I wanted to. I felt discouraged. My pediatrician told me I had to, supplement with formula, and then my milk supply dropped. Like I was hearing very rarely, I had a great experience. I felt really supported, but I was also hearing that people found joy and like, oh, I loved breastfeeding. I miss it. I miss that bonding. So there's just like so much to talk about and so much to dive in. I knew this was the space for me. And so I created a podcast, Spilling the Milk, Breastfeeding Chats. And out of that, in those conversations was born the online course that I have and coaching and counseling services that I provide.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that you are able to actually support women in so many different ways, like across so many different channels. I think that's really important. Kind of similar to what I do. You have a bunch of information that's free and it's accessible, and you're helping empower women by simply just creating podcast episodes so they can have exposure. And I think that's really important. And I love that you focus on breastfeeding, because I feel like the narrative that I have always heard about breastfeeding is like, it's easy. You don't really need help. What do you mean? Like milk just comes out and your baby sucks on your nipple. Like, what do you mean you need a lactation consultant? Like, what is that? There's all of this. I think people, and even myself and other women, like, I think we just assume that, yeah, it's going to work out. Like, why wouldn't it? My body knows what to do. Like, why would there be any issues? Is that kind of what you hear as well, until women kind of get into the deep end of it? And then they're like, oh, whoa, like this is way harder than I thought.
Yes. And a metaphor I like is that, sure, it's a natural process. Like learning to walk is a natural process. That doesn't mean that you don't need to practice and fail a little bit and like reconfigure and try again. So it's natural. Like we are mammals. As soon as we have a baby, our body is making milk and it's the perfect food for our tiny human. It's awesome. That's how it's supposed to work. But things that get in the way are stress. And if you envision like a typical hospital birth and maybe there are complications, or maybe there's a bunch of people in the room, or there's bright lights, or like your father-in-law wants to hold the baby, like we are meant to start breastfeeding in this super safe, like supported environment where it's just mom and baby skin to skin. It's super patient. The baby actually can find the nipple on their own. They have like built-in abilities and reflexes to do that if they're left to their own devices. If mom is in a state of calm where oxytocin can release, where prolactin can release to make the milk, to have the milk let down. So left undisturbed, yes, you can definitely breastfeed your baby. In our modern society, with all the pressures and medicalization and extra things getting in the way, it can be hard. So that's sort of my take on it. Is it's like, can we remove the things that modern society has sort of put in the way? And that's how you're going to have the best outcome. Honestly, when you are told to supplement with formula, that's when your body is getting less signal, less demand to keep making milk. So it's like a downward spiral. And it's our anxiety that gets in the way. It's other people's anxiety being projected on us. Like someone tells you, oh my gosh, the baby lost too much weight. Like that happens all the time. And a lot of times that was not necessarily the case. So people are like fear-based making decisions that sort of impact the way breastfeeding unfolds for them.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, I feel like. Pressure you put on yourself, like pressure from other people, and a lot of judgment as well. Like judgment of, and I've seen it and I've heard it always. Like, oh, you're still breastfeeding your kid. Your kid's like 2 years old. Or, oh, you stopped breastfeeding at 2 months. Or, oh, you're using this formula, that formula. Like there's just so much judgment and like low key criticism. And it's hard, especially, I imagine, especially for new moms who are just trying to figure it out, you know, and like are just trying to do the best they can. Like, I think it's really difficult. What do you know, when women come to you in any format and they are struggling with breastfeeding, like what are kind of some of the early strategies that you say, hey, like this is really foundational for breastfeeding before we even look at anything else?
Yeah, honestly, one of the best things I can do is just to validate, because you are right. When you're a brand new mom, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know if you're doing it right. You don't know if your baby's normal. You don't know if you're normal. So just to listen to what's going on and sort of validate, like, yes, that sounds like typical behavior of a newborn, of a new breastfeeding relationship. If they're having a ton of pain, like the nipple is cracked and the nipple's bleeding and they are wincing every time the baby latches on, some of that is normal because our nipples and breasts are just so tender at that time for lots of reasons. But I usually encourage new moms to work with a lactation consultant. And if they're having pain, if they truly feel like something's wrong, and I say, don't just rely on the person that visits you in your hospital room. So yes, most hospitals provide like a visit with a lactation consultant. It's sort of a crapshoot. Like sometimes if you have your baby in the middle of the night, you might not see the lactation consultant for a while. Once you go home, obviously they're not there with you. You didn't necessarily pick this person. Maybe they don't really jive with you. And so I think before you even have the baby, if you can just identify a lactation consultant in your local area that you feel comfortable with and you can sort of have on speed dial, that is honestly one of the best things you can do. Because if you get that latch correct and you feel confident, like you know what it's supposed to look like, sound like, feel like, then you can sort of troubleshoot from there on your own. But if you're having pain every time they're latching, that's going to, I mean, it's hard on your mental health, your physical health, and it's something you can a lot of times correct with a lactation consultant.
Yeah. So it's really about like outsourcing to the experts. And I love the idea of having somebody on call who can come to your house and just really be able to support you. Or maybe you go to them. I don't know how it works in like the different countries and places, but I really like that. I think that's a smart idea. We have like postpartum doulas here as well in Canada, and they're great. You know, like they do a lot of that work as well. Some are actually obviously certified in lactation as well, which is really great to see. So there are these people out there who can be extra support. But, you know, if a mom is listening to this and maybe she doesn't have access to that, like what can she do for maybe like some of the typical problems that moms kind of run into with breastfeeding? Have you heard about senolytics yet? It's a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. Your life goals in your career and beyond require productivity. Let's be honest. The aging process, however, is not our friend when it comes to endless energy and productivity. And that's why I use Qualia Senolytic. If someone had told me that there are science-backed ingredients that could help me feel 15 years younger in a matter of months, I would not have believed it until I tried this. As we age, everyone accumulates these senescent cells in our bodies. They're also kind of known as zombie cells. They are old and worn out and not serving a useful function for our health anymore, but they're taking up space and nutrients from our healthy cells. Much like getting rid of dead leaves off of a plant, Qualia Senolytic removes those worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of them to thrive in the body. The best part is you actually only need to take it 2 days a month. When I have taken this, I've had higher energy levels. I have been more productive, felt more enthusiastic in life, and also had less aches and pains. So resist aging at the cellular level. Try Qualia Senolytic right now. Go to qualialife.com/Brittany for up to 50% off, which is wild. And use code Brittany at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's Qualia, spelled Qualia, life.com/Brittany for an extra 15% off of your purchase. Thanks to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode, and I will definitely be taking my share this month.
Yeah. So the importance of skin to skin is something to definitely focus on. So I like to say you need to be topless a lot. So make sure like your partner is creating this private space for you. So maybe you are not having visitors all the time. I don't think we understand that right after we have the baby, we sort of now it's more accepted to call it the fourth trimester. It really is. So that baby doesn't even know yet that they are a separate person from mom. They just want to be smelling mom, hearing her heartbeat, touching her skin. When you're skin to skin, you're regulating each other's nervous system and you're regulating baby's body temperature. So I would say less pressure on how much milk is baby getting? How much time are you spending relaxed, skin to skin with your baby? If you've only tried nursing in sort of like a sitting up in a chair position, because that's kind of like what we picture almost as a substitute for if baby's being fed a bottle, like you're in the same position. Definitely try other positions. Like if you're just laying on the bed and on your side and they're sort of like tummy to tummy with you, a lot of people have success with that. If you think about it, the nipple is actually a circle. The baby could be upside down feeding. Like it doesn't matter. If they're latched on your nipple at any angle, they can still get milk. And so trying different angles, but really taking that pressure off of how much are they getting? How often are they nursing? Like that baby just needs to be near you and attempting to feed as often as possible. And it's not all about the calories too. So, oh my gosh, they just ate. Are they really still hungry? They might just need comfort. Babies want to suck on you for different reasons. Like again, it regulates their emotions. It calms them. So just trying different positions, skin to skin, taking care of mom. Is she hydrated? Is she getting nutritious food? Is she getting rest whenever she can? Is she taking a warm bath to just like come back to herself and her own calm to then, try again with feeding the baby?
Yeah, I just imagine like getting so frustrated, honestly, even just like the way you're describing it of like, you're trying everything, you're trying the positions and it's just your baby's not latching or it's painful or, there's these other issues. Maybe you're getting like clogged ducts or something. I imagine how frustrating that would be. And then when you're frustrated, you're obviously not in a relaxed state, right? And then you're irritated and then that would be me for sure. Like I am no exception to that rule. Like I even imagine myself just being like frustrated, irritated, then crying and then being like, okay, what do I do now? And then and then you're so tired emotionally. And really what mom needs in that moment is like you said, like a hot bath, like a few hours of sleep straight, ideally, some electrolytes, some water, and just like an afternoon of replenishment. And then, okay, like coming back fresh. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this again. Like we can do this, But man, I just imagine in those really dark moments when it's just you and the baby, or maybe you have a partner, like I just imagine it being very, very mentally difficult.
Yes. And so to not sugarcoat it, it likely will be difficult. And the first few weeks are the worst. So that is what I want you to know, is that when it's that hard, it will not be that hard forever. It is that initial period of when your milk supply is sort of evening out and you're just figuring out your rhythm. But you will get into a rhythm of like feed, sleep, change the baby. They're awake for a little bit, feed, sleep, change. Like you will find a rhythm. But in the beginning, it just feels like, they want to eat all the time, and they kind of do. And you are the milk maker and you are always on call. And that can be overwhelming. Some people feel touched out. So then like, even if your partner just tries to like put a nice hand on your shoulder, you're like, oh my God, one more person touching me. Like someone is always touching me. That's a really common thing. And it's actually something to give a heads up to your partner. Like nothing personal. Love you so much. One day I will want you to touch me again. Today is not that day. My nipples are being touched all of the time. But the other thing I'll say too is, so you have options. I'm a big fan of hand expressing milk. So, and there's different videos you can watch how to do this, but if latching is really an issue, you can hand express some milk, put that into a bottle, or even babies can sip out of like a tiny little cup or off a spoon. Like there are other ways to get the baby the milk that they need if latching is an issue right now. Or, some people do start pumping. Generally, you don't want to be doing that right away. You just want your body to get to know the signals, directly from your baby. But you can pump like one bottle so that your partner can feed the baby while you take 3 hours of sleep to yourself. So there are little strategies to, get through that initial really hard period until things start to feel natural. You're not using mental energy every single time. Like, okay, baby has to be this way, tilt their head this way, lips this way. It's like when you start a new job and it's mentally exhausting because you have to think about every little decision. And that's how breastfeeding is. At first, you're thinking about every little detail. I mean, taking care of a newborn, you're thinking about every little detail. Eventually, it starts to feel second nature. It's not so emotionally and mentally taxing. But if you can't get through that initial part and keep your milk supply going and you lose it, then it's really, really hard to get it back. So that's like the bummer of this, is like you have to get through the hardest part to then have a milk supply for the next year or two or however long you want to breastfeed. And that's just sort of the message I want to impart. I don't want to sugarcoat it. It could be really hard. And I think you would find that it's worth it if you can get to the part where it becomes a lot easier.
Okay, that's really good to know. So that initial hard hump you're saying is about like 2 to 3 weeks. And then you kind of get into, you and baby both get into a rhythm and kind of know what to expect.
Yes. And of course, there's variations. So if there's truly an issue with the latch, like the baby, the buzzword is a tongue tie or a lip tie, like there's something structurally going on in the baby's mouth that is making it difficult for them to form like the vacuum seal you need to actually get the milk out effectively. If that goes unaddressed, then it could extend much longer because it's still going to be painful and you're still going to have issues. So that's why I do think it's so important to seek expert input if things are not starting to get better, like in that second or third week. And some people have an easier time. So I'm just sort of giving you the average, and because I want people to be set up for, I might have to problem solve. I might have to seek an expert to help me in that time.
When do you recommend women start pumping if they want to have bottles and have this like backup supply?
Sure. So that's like the most common question. When do I start pumping? And I almost want to say like, don't think about pumping. It should be an afterthought. I do understand some people have to return to work super early, like 6 weeks. And so they're just really stressed. Like, I have to have a stash of milk. Well, you don't have to have a stash of milk. You just have to have exactly enough while you're away. Like people live day to day. They only have so much milk in the fridge for that day, and then they'll pump during the day for the next day. So if you have this visual in your mind of, I have to have all this milk stocked up, that is like sort of a damaging thought we've gotten from social media. So if you are stressed about not having a storage freezer full of milk, like please remove that from your list of things to worry about. There's plenty of other things to worry about. But the reason you don't want to start pumping too early is you can actually build an oversupply, which if you're worried about not making enough milk, sounds like a good problem to have. But an oversupply means you could be getting clogged ducts, mastitis. There's just like, too much fullness in your breasts. And it's getting in the way of you finding the natural demand and supply amount with the baby. So exclusive breastfeeding at first without the pumping is probably the best approach. That being said, I use like a manual pump to just do like one bottle a day or every other day, because mentally it felt like such a nice relief to know that like someone else was going to handle one feeding for me. So that was the choice that I made, and it didn't seem to impact. I didn't seem to get oversupply, but I would just, it's funny because women nursed for all of history until like electric breast pumps were invented, in the last century. You don't have to pump to breastfeed. And even if you're going back to work, I wouldn't worry about the pumping too soon. Like, let's think about that once we really feel like we're in our rhythm of just the breastfeeding.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. Why do you prefer the manual pump over the electric pump?
Oh no, I have both. And it's funny because nowadays women will have like a manual, double electric, a wearable electric, like all the different pumps. But so the manual was, if I really just wanted one bottle, I found it more comfortable. I didn't like the sensation of the electric pump, especially at first when my nipples were still really sensitive. Eventually, and like if you are leaving baby for extended periods of time, like to return to work, I used the electric, and everybody finds the one they like and finds their rhythm. But these wearables now, it's kind of cool because you have a little bit more freedom and you can be pumping like while you're doing other things.
Nice. Yeah, I got the Willow one that so it's like a wearable, and it comes with two, and it just goes like right in your bra. And it was, highly recommended. I saw my girlfriend use it and she loved it. And so it just made sense to me to like not have to sit plugged into the wall and just be like, have these things like just sucking milk out of me. I was like, well, I might as well try to like low key, like clean the house or do something while I'm pumping. So
yeah, you sound like me, like you just want to be efficient and productive and like multitask if you can. I will say, just to double check that you have the inserts, like you can buy different size silicone inserts to change the flange size, because a huge problem with pumping is that the flange sizes that come standard in the box do not fit most women. You kind of have to order like a separate set, a lot of times smaller. I want to say like 18 millimeters is pretty common. That's something a lactation consultant can help you with sizing yourself, but there's also tools online to do that. But just know, like if you're having issues with pumping, it might not be the pump. It just might be this flange size is not fit correctly to your nipple. And with the wearable, same thing, like you buy a little insert to change the opening size.
okay, cool. I'm definitely going to have to look into that to like make sure that it fits properly. It's like all these things, you think you can just buy it and be done, but it's like every breast is different.
So different. Yeah. Like think about the variety.
Yeah. Which makes sense. We're all biologically different, and I get it. For women out there dealing with mastitis, can you explain what this is and like your holistic approach to it?
Sure. So first it starts with a clogged duct. So milk is delivered through these little tubes, that come out in your areola around your nipple. If you get a backup in a certain spot, it's like, if your pipes in your house plumbing were clogged, it's like a backup, and you'll feel a little like knot in one spot in your breast, and it'll almost feel like a little ball, and it will be painful. You might get redness there. It sucks. And there's different ways to clear the clogged duct. Like you can use a vibrating electric toothbrush. You can use a comb to like comb it towards your nipple, like try to work that knot out yourself. Take a warm shower. That helps a little bit. Have dangle feed, which is where you're like above your baby, like leaning over them. And so you're using gravity and like their suction to like suck out the clog. Anyway, I talk about all this because proactively, if you're staying on top of clearing clogged ducts, that can help prevent mastitis. If your nipples are cracked and bleeding, that would allow bacteria to enter, and that can cause an infection. So using like a nipple cream, trying to keep your nipples dry between feedings so they can sort of air out. These are all proactive things to prevent mastitis. If you have mastitis, usually you'll know because you get like a high fever and it's just super painful and you feel awful, like kind of like you have the flu. And you want to put a call into your midwife or your OB. And a lot of times they'll prescribe you antibiotics. you don't have to take antibiotics to clear it. A lot of times you're just going to keep doing those same things you were doing to try to clear the clogged duct, and it can resolve. You can obviously take, fever reducing medication if you want to. I have a go-to like holistic lactation consultant in my local area. And honestly, I want to work with her more to get clear on her specific protocol for clearing it without antibiotics. But I know, like I had mastitis twice. The first time I was prescribed antibiotics, I took them. I hate antibiotics. I hate what it does to like the gut microbiome. I'd rather avoid them. The second time my midwife was like, you don't have to take the antibiotics. It can clear on its own. I was like, why didn't anybody tell me that the first time? So anyway, it's not the end of the world. It's one of my least favorite parts of breastfeeding. It doesn't happen to everybody and you can get through it. But if you have a good relationship with your midwife, with your lactation consultant, and like I said, I'm honestly working on putting out a pretty good, protocol for dealing with it holistically, but there are some out there. And yeah, that slowdown on mastitis, it's so not fun. It's so painful, but you do get through it. And again, not everybody gets it.
If you're feeling out of sync with your hormones or struggling with fertility, I totally get it. I've been there and it can be so frustrating, but I found a delicious way to support your reproductive health. I have developed hormone balancing, fertility boosting chocolate. This isn't just any type of chocolate. It's packed with adaptogens like maca root and antioxidants from cacao and pomegranate. These ingredients can help regulate your hormones and support your preconception health and fertility. You need to download this recipe ASAP, okay? Because it's more than just a treat. It's a powerful way to nourish your body from the inside out. Imagine indulging in a rich, delicious chocolate that not only satisfies your sweet tooth, but also boosts your wellness. Whether you're trying to conceive, balance your hormones, or just crave a healthy indulgence that you get to make from home, where you get to control all of the ingredients and also optimize your health, this recipe is perfect for you. Don't miss out on this tasty, fertility enhancing, optimizing health solution. You can go to biohackingbrittany.com/pages/fertility-chocolate and download the recipe for free right now. Go for it. It's just right there waiting for you. It's linked in my show notes. It's linked on my website. You're going to find it super, super easy. So treat yourself to better health, one delicious bite at a time. Yeah, it's really helpful to think about like the ways that we can be proactive and preventative about it. Just like washing thoroughly, watching for clogged ducts, nipple cream, nipple butters, all that type of thing. I also see people using, and I actually have them, these like silverettes.
Oh my gosh. I was about to say, when I go to a baby shower, what I am gifting is silverettes. I wish I had them. They are so smart because they're made out of antimicrobial material. So already you're helping, not get infected in your nipples. They create a little barrier so your nipples aren't rubbing up against your shirt or your bra. They keep them dry in between feedings. And honestly, so when you're done nursing, you can squeeze out a little extra breast milk and rub that on your nipple. Your breast milk is antiviral, antimicrobial. So that's already, protecting you. And then you put the silverette cup on and it gives like a little air pocket to just keep your nipples dry. And it's the best thing you can do. So yes, get those silverette cups. And I'm a big fan of the little milk catcher cups too. So like if you're nursing on your left side, you've got this milk catcher on your right side. When you have a letdown, a lot of times, especially in the beginning, your body's just like shooting milk out. The baby's drinking from the left side, but your right nipple is dripping all this liquid gold like into your bra pad. And you're like, no, we got to catch this. So they have these little milk catchers. You catch it and you put that in a bottle. And now without even pumping, you have a little milk if you do need to be away from baby for a little bit and they want to eat. So the silverette cups for sure. And then the milk catchers are also really helpful.
Nice. Yeah. I have one from Haka and I have a couple, but yeah, they're really easy to find, like very, very accessible. With the silverettes, do you recommend that women put them on their nipples after every feed and then just like leave it in their bra until the next feed? So you're basically wearing it all day.
I don't see a reason not to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, fair. Like it probably honestly feels good too, because it's like cooling.
It's cooling. I mean, that being said, sometimes you might just want to be topless and sort of like air dry. So don't feel like you need to rush to put a bra on just to put the cups in or anything like that. But as much as you can, it's going to feel nice.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. What are the other common issues that you kind of see with breastfeeding other than mastitis and clogged ducts?
Yeah, I mean, not most people, a big thing is just being worried about your supply or like the baby's still hungry or I'm not making enough. And I think it's hard because you don't know what enough is. Like as an adult, we know essentially how much we need to eat during the day. But this brand new baby, if you can picture, their tummy is like the size of a cherry when they're born. So they can only have so much milk at a time. They're going to need to eat frequently because they're eating like small, frequent meals essentially. And so I would say just like trusting in the process and letting your baby lead, that's hard. So if you are someone who likes control, who likes a plan, who likes a checklist, breastfeeding is going to be really challenging because it's unknown, it's uncontrollable in a lot of ways. And at the end of the day, you're going to be like, what did I even do today? But really, you kept your baby alive with your milk. So I honestly think one of the hardest parts is just this mindset shift. It's totally different than anything you've ever done before. And sort of just trusting in your body, letting go of some of that need for control, being flexible, asking for help when you need it. I don't like to ask for help ever in any area of my life, and I didn't reach out to a lactation consultant when I should have. And I struggled longer than I should have probably with my first baby on my own. And yeah, there's no shame in the game. They do this all day, every day. They've seen so many different cases and they can help you identify right away if something's actually structurally wrong or it's just a matter of, adjusting what you're doing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I love that. Yeah. And it's just being like open-minded. And I think that goes with the hypnobirthing as well that you kind of previously mentioned. I would love for you to kind of explain the hypnobirthing methods that you've used for your births and like what worked for you.
Sure. So I was able to have all 3 births unmedicated, all different. Like first one was super long labor. Second one was almost born in my bedroom. Third one, like fell out in the shower at the hospital, all different things. But the hypnobirthing, the big idea is that it's sort of like I was saying with the breastfeeding, our bodies know what to do. What gets in the way is stress and fear, because when your body is feeling stressed and fearful, it releases cortisol and all of these things that block the natural hormones and the natural chemicals we need, like oxytocin, that are actually like natural pain reducers, So with hypnobirthing, it's practicing leaning in when you feel discomfort, relaxing into discomfort. It's kind of like probably if you've been to a yoga class, definitely a prenatal yoga class, you're holding a pose and the teacher says, when it starts to feel like you feel a sensation, instead of pulling back, resisting, you lean into it, you relax into it. That's essentially hypnobirthing. And so you do that through visualizations, through different breathing techniques, and essentially a mindset shift of my body is capable, my body is opening, I trust my body, it knows what to do. And we don't call them contractions, we call them like riding the waves essentially. And it is like natural contractions are a wave. They only last for so long. They have a peak intensity, and you breathe through that and you get through them like one at a time. So it's a really mindful, like conscious, present way to be in your labor instead of fighting against it or trying to like just remove the pain with drugs. And honestly, those skills of like leaning into discomfort, breathing through, you're going to use them again when you're breastfeeding, again when your toddler's throwing a tantrum. Like they are really good skills to learn. So that's why I'm such a fan. It's like getting to know your body and how you can sort of find calm in situations that are not necessarily calm.
Yeah, I love that. And I just think it's so powerful. There's things that I've definitely done already that are, and like a lot of people, in the biohacking space have done, like cold therapy, for example, is a great way to practice being uncomfortable. And, even if it's a cold shower for a couple of minutes, like for someone who's just starting, that sucks. Like that feels so uncomfortable. But it's like, okay, how do I lean into this discomfort? And when I am feeling uncomfortable, how do I breathe through this? right? And so what I find, with cold therapy is like the first minute's the worst. And then afterwards, you kind of like start to breathe deeper and regulate. And then you bring yourself down and the adrenaline comes down, cortisol comes down. And I think that's just applicable for these, times that we're in, birth or postpartum, when things are painful, like physically painful, and you don't want to resort to medications or some other method. Like you want to be able to get through it. It's really the mindset. It's like mind over matter. And it's like, how do you train the mind to be like, we can do this. Like, this is what I'm made for. I can do this. Do you have any good resources that you love for hypnobirthing? Like whether it's a book or a podcast that, people can kind of dive into?
Well, I myself am considering getting officially trained as a hypnobirthing instructor so that I can offer classes. So I did the Mongan method, which is its own book. And then you can take courses with an instructor who's trained specifically in the Mongan method. There's also the Calm Birth School. That's the one I'm thinking about getting certified through. And they have good resources on there. I'm guessing there's a ton of like free hypnobirthing visualization meditations on YouTube. Like if you just start sort of searching for things, and you'll figure out what works for you, like what techniques help you find calm. So it's sort of like an individual journey, but the Calm Birth School and the Mongan method are like the two big hypnobirthing schools that I know of.
I love that. Yeah. And even just having some sort of like meditation, visualization practice in general, even if you don't want to call it like hypnobirthing, is like really powerful. Like, how do I tap into that state of mind? And obviously, the more you do it, the better it is. In my first trimester, I read this book called Spirit Babies. I don't know if you know it, but it's beautiful. And it's all about basically connecting with your unborn child. And there's meditations in there that you sit and you visualize like this baby that's growing in you. And, what color do they come up to you as? Like, what's their aura like? And then you kind of like build on that meditation throughout your whole pregnancy, and you can go back to it. And it's a really good book. And it's just about connecting, to this idea of like, my baby has a spirit, whether you believe that or not, but like my baby has a spirit, and I'm going to connect to this, and we are going to do this together. We are going to do this birth together. And I think stuff like that is really powerful because again, you're just training the mind to think like above and beyond this like pain that you might feel in your uterus right now. Like, let's go outside of the body. Do you know what I mean?
Ooh, I love that. And actually, some doulas describe it as like mom is almost dissociated, like in another parallel universe. And I felt this myself, especially like when you get really close to delivering, your instincts just take over. I think I started making sounds that now probably sounded like an animal more than, like you just let your body do. And if you are really flowing with how you want your body to flow, I think I was in the bathtub. I do recommend hydrotherapy. I love being in a warm tub or even standing under like a warm shower dripping on your back. But doulas will say like, yeah, moms go to this other place. And I love your description of the visualization and connecting with your baby like that. That was one of my favorite parts of a prenatal yoga class I took. She said, like, pretend you're laying on your side on like a picnic blanket and like baby's there with you. And then when my baby really was here, I like laid on a picnic blanket and I was like, I've been preparing for this moment with you since you were in my belly. But everything you're describing is so separate from like the medicalized approach to birth being, a medical event that needs to be managed and risk mitigated. And like, we don't trust you. We're going to pull the baby out. And like what you're describing is this spiritual situation, which it is. It's so deep. It's so emotional. That's why I just treat it as like a holistic thing because it is not medical. It is so much more than that.
Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. For those women listening, and I had a friend like this who didn't feel connected to their babies when they were pregnant. My friend, she had her baby in maybe April, I think it was. And I remember she did the early gender test, like the one that you pay for out of pocket here. And like, cause usually you can find out at the 20-week ultrasound. And she did the one that you find out like week 6 or something like super early. And And I was like, oh, like, why did you choose to do it? And she's like, oh, well, I just didn't feel connected to the baby. Like, and I just wanted more information. And I was trying to just like grasp onto something, and which was like the total opposite experience for me. Like I felt so deeply connected right away. And I was meditating and doing these visualizations like I was talking about. So for those women who are like, man, I want to be connected, but I'm just not there. Like, where can they start so they can kind of start building that bridge?
Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, realize that you're not the only one. So it's definitely like a spectrum of how people feel and like at what point they really start to feel that connection. So I know people even who, postpartum, they're still not feeling what they think it's supposed to feel like, what that connection is supposed to feel like. But eventually it comes. But it also comes with like probably starting with self-awareness and just like feeling connected to yourself first. I don't want to jump straight to therapy, but like maybe going to therapy, maybe there are some like underlying fears, like you have a really deep, am I going to be a good enough mother, or something happened to you that makes you think this isn't going to go well, or you're not capable of this, or is there anything going on with just you that you should address first that then would open you up to that connection, or like taking on this whole new identity of being a mother? It is like quite the transformation. So definitely be gentle with yourself. Know that it might not feel for you exactly how it feels for somebody else, but you were chosen to be this baby's mom, and only you can do that job. And so you'll figure it out.
If there's one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral. It's powerful, and it's involved in over 600 critical reactions, including hormone balance, stress management, sleep quality. Even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. But there are two big problems here. One, magnesium has been largely missing from U.S. soil since the 1950s, which explains why it's estimated that up to 75% of the population may be deficient. And two, most supplements contain only 1 or 2 forms of magnesium, when in reality, your body needs 7. The only magnesium supplement on the market that has the full spectrum of all 7 forms is called Magnesium Breakthrough by Bioptimizers. This is my favorite. I've been taking it for over 2 years. That's why I'm so excited to tell you that I was able to arrange a killer deal for you for this summer. You won't find this deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. This deal is exclusively for my audience, and it's for a very, very limited time and only while supplies last. So right now you can actually get a bottle of Magnesium Breakthrough for free. Like actually, you get it for free. I'm not kidding. So go now to my website that they made for me, which is magbreakthrough.com/biohackingbrittany and get your bottle of Magnesium Breakthrough for free today. Again, that's magbreakthrough.com/biohackingbrittany and you get it for free. So go now. It's linked in my show notes of this episode, and it's linked on my website so you can find it really easily, or just DM me and I will send it to you as well. All of us should be on magnesium, and this is my absolute favorite one to take. Oh, I love that. That's such a sweet thing to say. And yeah, I really just I agree with that. Like, I think it's so important. And for me, what I found really helped was reading the books and listening to the podcasts. And I wanted the information. I wanted to learn and be educated and understand, what's going to happen during first trimester. What do I expect this week and that week? And, you get all those books that are like, week 4, this is what you're going to feel like. Baby's the size of a blueberry or whatever. And it sounds silly, but that actually really did help me feel connected and visualize, because you don't know, you don't get to see your baby, right? Like, you look down, you don't get to see anything. And especially in first trimester, when you're not showing most of the time, or really no one really is, it's like a really hard time, because you're like, I'm pregnant, but I don't look pregnant. I don't feel pregnant. And especially if you're the first time mom, it's like, a lot of people don't tell anybody. So there's all of this, I'm pregnant, but it's this secret. And if the pregnancy goes away, I'm not supposed to tell anybody. And there's shame around it, even though 1 in 4 women get miscarriages now, unfortunately. So it's honestly, it's kind of just lonely. It really is kind of lonely.
Yeah, that's fair. And so that's honestly something I'm sort of wading into, is just being like a pregnancy and postpartum coach, like a person that you can say those things to, and like no judgment, just compassion, validation as you sort of work through that. But it doesn't feel real, especially with your first baby. And there's all the what ifs in your head. Like there's definitely fear there too. So, quote unquote, getting your hopes up, or just already envisioning the nursery, and like it feels scary. So all of that is so normal.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It's so normal. It's so common, and it's so normal to feel like that. Like, you are not the only woman who feels like that right now. And I will say, another recommendation that I would have is to join communities online that are due in the similar time as you. Like, I use the app, what's it called? Like, What to Expect. And like, I don't love the book. Like, I don't really like the recommendations in the book, but the community is great. And automatically, when I joined, I got added to this group that was like July 2024. And so now there's like 10,000 women in there, and we just get to like, you just get to write a post and read what other people are going through. And like, and it was so helpful, especially in the beginning, to just have this community of people, of women I will never ever meet, likely, but they get it and they're going through it all around the world. And like, let's just chat and talk about it.
Yes, I'm still part of Summer Babies 2014 Chicago when I had my baby. And now they're posting about like what it's like to have a 10-year-old. So that's super helpful. But I always caution against, Facebook groups, because I mean, you and I both, I think, are like, we love to research. We love to know what everybody else is, doing. But like with thinking about your own birth or like your own breastfeeding experience, just make sure you're not absorbing other people's stories as like, well, that's how it's going to be for me. Because sometimes in those groups, people have like a traumatic birth and they want to vent about it, which I understand. But venting to the people that are then about to go into labor tomorrow is probably not the best. Or like they're struggling through breastfeeding and like they do need the support. But for the mom, again, who's about to deliver tomorrow, like we want her to go into breastfeeding knowing that she's going to write her own story. It's not going to go exactly how everybody else's went necessarily.
Yeah, that's totally true. There's a lot of like fear mongering out there. And yeah, I've been really careful with that. Like I know some women like love to watch like YouTube videos of like successful home births or things like that. And I get that, but I don't know. There's something about it that I just haven't wanted those experiences like impressed on me or like put on me. So I'll like educate myself in, okay, here's all the things that I should do. Here's how, Pitocin works and like all of the medical interventions and all the decisions that you have to make at birth. But hearing the birth stories, whether positive or negative, I don't know, like I've obviously heard some, but it's definitely not a rabbit hole I'm like going down all the time.
It's funny. I think after you have your own birth story, then you will want to. That's been my experience. But I guess another thing about hypnobirthing is that it's useful no matter how things unfold. So like I did have to get Pitocin with my third baby. Obviously that was not my ideal, but I made a decision based on the facts, and I was still able to use my hypnobirthing skills. Women who end up, they're 9 centimeters dilated and they just need to take the edge off and they say yes to the epidural, they still are thankful that they had the hypnobirthing skills. Women that end up having a C-section, they are still thankful they had the hypnobirthing skills. So just because you learn these techniques doesn't mean your birth has to unfold a specific way for them to be useful or for you to feel glad that you prepared yourself. Being able to calm yourself no matter what comes up, it applies to however your birth is going to unfold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And I completely agree. I want to know if you've had any experience with any women who have had breech babies or like successfully been able to flip breech babies through things like hypnotherapy. Because I know I was just reading about this. I know there is, some evidence out there that's like, visualization and meditation can actually be really helpful as one of the tools to use during that time.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely heard success stories of people flipping babies. The go-to resource is usually spinningbabies.com. So that's like physical positions to do with your body. I don't have any personal experience with someone using like visualization, but I don't doubt it. I mean, you are so, like you're saying, you're so connected when you're pregnant, you're so connected to your baby. I would definitely explore that. There's also There's chiropractors who specialize in the Webster technique, which is meant to like prepare the pelvis for birth. And so I'm more familiar with those types of resources for optimal positioning, but I love the idea of using the visualization as well. And definitely, during labor, I was visualizing the baby like dropping lower and like spinning, the right way. And for sure, I was doing that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And even visualizing like you, like the baby coming out of you and like maybe you're grabbing him or her with your hands, right? It's like, let's manifest it and like put it out into the universe.
Why not? Baseball players visualize hitting a home run. So like, why not visualize catching a baby?
Yeah, exactly. This has been so great and so inspiring. If people want to work with you or do your course, where can they go and how can they find you?
Yes, definitely. empoweredbumpsandboobs.com is my website. I have a free 10-minute video. I call it my elevator breastfeeding class. It's sort of like if I was with you in an elevator and like you're delivering tomorrow and I only have 10 minutes. We're like trapped in this elevator. I've got 10 minutes to tell you the most important things you need to know about breastfeeding. I list like my top 8 things to tell you. So that's like resource number 1. But then I would love for anyone who's interested to join my breastfeeding bootcamp. And so that's access to, it's like 100+ lessons I have on breastfeeding, but it's not just latching, milk supply pumping. It's also nutrition, mental health postpartum, the impact on your relationships when you're breastfeeding. And then it's a community so you can ask questions. I'm there to answer. There's other moms. And I try to keep it super reasonable. So it's $29 a month with a 7-day free trial. And then for your listeners with the coupon code BiohackingBrittany, they can get $10 off their first month. Just like super low risk. Try it out, learn some information, see if you like the community and if it's useful for you. I definitely recommend joining while you're still pregnant to prepare yourself for what to expect. And then once baby's here, you can ask specific questions in terms of what's happening for you. And then I do want to add like one-on-one virtual coaching services. And I would love to grow a team. So if this is resonating with anyone who would love to join me as a breastfeeding coach, like I am a certified breastfeeding counselor, but I consider it more of like a coaching practice. If this is resonating with you and you'd love to join my team and help me support more women, I would love to have you.
Amazing. Oh, I love that you're doing that. I think that's just so exciting. And I will definitely put that link and information in the show notes and the website so people can find you very easily. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I loved our discussion and I know everyone is going to get a lot out of it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I obviously wish you the best for your experience.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.